A deranged individual or even group enter your home. What's your plan? Call 911? The truth is, if you wait for help, the event will be over by the time they get there. No one can defend you like you. Currently, there are millions of Americans licensed to carry a concealed weapon. Does this ensure their safety? No. Just because you can buy a handgun does not mean you can magically turn off a lethal threat. You need to train like you fight. Of course, most will go to the range to practice. But what are they really practicing? At best, marksmanship. And while these are the fundamental basics, for the most part, they do not provide you with the skills you need. Think about it. You're standing still in a fixed position and aiming at a fixed target. If you do that in a gunfight, you're done. Our basic defensive handgun program is designed to get you started right. So whether you're new to handguns or you just started shooting and feel lost on what you should be practicing, this program is for you. Did you know that armed citizens actually shoot 4 times as many violent criminals as police? Well, if that doesn't shock you, then you should consider the error rate for police is 8% versus civilians at 2%. Why? Like I said, no one can defend you like you. Handguns are not some evil menace. They are a tool. It is the person that wields it that gives it its reputation. So are you prepared to fight for your life, the life of your loved ones, the property you work so hard for? Speaking of property, do you realize that 87% of all things stolen are never recovered? My point is, no matter how hard the police work for you, it will not bring back your irreplaceable items. Most police officers will support the carrying of a weapon for defense. It's very disheartening to hear a good cop tell the story of how they didn't make it in time, or that the victim never took on their constitutional rights to arm themselves for self-defense. It's very easy to say it won't happen to you, that you don't need to know how to use a handgun, or my personal favorite, that's what the police are for. It's wonderful to afford such a luxury, but when it comes, you will be the prey for your assailants. You won't have the tools to stop them, and if you live, it will be because they allowed it, not because you knew what you were doing. I know you don't want to put your life and the lives of your loved ones in the hands of criminals. Saving your life does not have to be with Las Vegas odds. And while there's no guarantees, we can help you bring the odds into your favor. Still not convinced? Listen, there's nothing redeemable or comfortable about gun violence. No one likes to see it on the news, and most definitely not in person. But what else is left when the imminent danger finds you? Death? We're at a time where violence is widespread. The police cannot protect you, and the government attempts to strip you of your Second Amendment rights at every turn. But the numbers are in. The community is safer when there are law-abiding citizens who arm themselves. It may not be the ideal utopia, but it's what we have. People, for the most part, are good at heart. Otherwise, with hundreds of millions of guns in America, our population would decline drastically overnight. Evil is not going away. You can stand up to it or fall prey to it. Make our basic defensive handgun program be your first step to training. But let's address some of the basics just to get you started. The 5 basic rules for concealed carry. 1. Your concealed handgun is for protection of life and irreplaceable property only. Draw it solely in preparation to protect yourself or an innocent third party from the wrongful and life-threatening criminal actions of another. 2. Know exactly when you can use your gun. A criminal adversary must have or reasonably appear to have the following. A. The attacker has the ability to inflict serious bodily injury. He is armed or reasonably appears to be armed with a deadly weapon. B. The opportunity to inflict serious bodily harm. He is physically positioned to harm you with his weapon. And finally, C. His intent, hostile actions or words, indicates that he means to place you in jeopardy, to do you serious or fatal physical harm. When all 3 of these attack potential elements are in place simultaneously, then you are facing a reasonable perceived deadly threat that justifies an emergency deadly force response. Or, if you find yourself facing the commission of a robbery, rape, murder, or kidnapping. 3. Develop your situational awareness skills so you can be alert to detect and avoid trouble altogether. Keep in mind that if you successfully evade a potential confrontation, the single negative consequence involved might be your bruised ego, which should heal with mature rationalization. But if you force a confrontation, you risk the possibility of you or a family member being killed or suffering lifelong crippling, disfiguring physical injury, criminal liability, and or even financial ruin from civil lawsuits. Avoid confrontation before it happens. Fight only as a last resort. 4. Display your gun, go to jail. Expect to be arrested by police at gunpoint and be charged with a crime anytime your concealed handgun is seen by another citizen in public, regardless of how unintentional or innocent or justified the situation might seem. Choose a method of carry that reliably keeps your gun hidden from public view at all times. You have no control over how a stranger will react to seeing or learning about your concealed handgun. He or she might become alarmed and report you to the police as a man or woman with a gun. Depending on his or her feelings about firearms, this person might be willing to maliciously embellish his or her story to attempt to have your gun seized by police or to get you arrested. An alarmed citizen who reports man with a gun is going to be more credible to police, especially when you're stopped because you match the suspect's description and you were found to have a concealed handgun in your possession. Before you expose your gun in public, ask yourself, is this worth going to jail for? The only time this question should warrant a yes response is when an adversary has at least both ability and intent and is actively seeking the opportunity to do you great harm. 5. Keep a cool temperament. If, despite your best efforts to the contrary, you do get into some kind of heated dispute with another person while you're armed, never mention, imply, or exhibit your gun for the purpose of intimidation or one-upmanship. You'll simply make a bad situation worse for yourself. Now, in order to defend yourself, you must be aware of the laws that bind us. Each state has its own set of laws. Some states rely on the 911 ferry to save its constituents, while most are aware of the realities of doing so and have opted to allow its citizens to stand their ground when all other reasonable forms of retreat are gone. So let's get a general overview of what we're talking about when we say engage a threat. Deadly force is the force that a person uses that could create a substantial risk of causing death or serious bodily harm. The use of force is justified only under conditions of extreme necessity as a last resort when all other lesser means have failed or cannot reasonably be employed. Firearms, bladed weapons, and even vehicles are among those weapons the use of which is considered deadly force. The use of non-weapons in an aggressive manner, such as a baseball bat or a tire iron, may also be considered deadly force. Use of deadly force is often granted to police forces when the person or persons in question are believed to be in immediate danger to people around them. For example, an armed man in a shopping mall shooting at random without regard to the safety of the people around him and refusing or being unwilling to negotiate would likely warrant usage of deadly force as a means to prevent further danger to the community. In many states, the Castle Doctrine addresses this for civilians. In the United States, a civilian may legally use deadly force when it is considered justifiable homicide. That is to say, when the civilian feels their own life or the lives of their family or those around them are in legitimate and imminent danger. Self-defense resulting in the usage of deadly force by a civilian or civilians against an individual or individuals is often subject to the examination by a court if it is unclear whether it was necessary at the point of the offense and whether any further action on the part of the law needs to be taken. So what will you do? How will you live your life and, more importantly, defend it if need be? Gunfighters Clinic is committed to arming responsible civilians and meeting their education and material needs. Our basic defensive handgun program will be your first step towards that liberating future.